Initially, I thought We Have a Ghost was purely a comedy. This is before I went in with it. And then I started watching it and realized that actually it was quite sentimental and it could have been such a beautiful, moving, and quite mysterious story. But the involvement of the CIA was ridiculous. I feel like they were trying to make it more action packed than it needed to be, and honestly, I feel like it ruined it. Not so much that I came away from the film thinking it was terrible, but in my mind, those scenes just didn't exist. And otherwise, what we get is a beautiful, sentimental, quite comedic, and very well acted film. But at the end of the day, the scenes with the CIA felt like they were trying to just make it more complex and take away from the raw beauty of the emotions that certain characters feel and portray, and particularly the emotions of Ernest. And I'll talk about him in a moment. So I feel like they could have really, really ruined this, but I'm able to look past those scenes and that involvement and appreciate the rest of the story for the well crafted narrative that it is. This was released this year in 2023, directed by Christopher Landon, and stars David Harbour as Ernest, who is the ghost, and Jahi Allo Winston as Kevin, and I apologise if I mispronounce any names. And Kevin and his family have moved into this house, and Kevin finds this ghost in the attic, and this ghost is Ernest. And initially, I thought it would have been better if only Kevin could see Ernest throughout the story, but actually, it worked quite well. The whole social media thing and videos of Ernest going viral, I thought was kind of, again, something the film was trying to do to be a little bit quirky and a little bit different, but it was just a cheap gimmick that ruined, again, an otherwise fascinating story. So there are definitely things in this that I think should have been removed. Not just that I would have preferred it without them, but I think they actually damage the otherwise beautiful quality of the film. But the rest of the narrative, once you take out the CIA doing their investigation and the social media aspect and other people responding, when it's just focusing on Ernest and Kevin and possibly a couple of other characters here and there, that's when it's emotional and still quite funny when it needs to be, and fascinating and mysterious because Ernest can't remember anything. And with Kevin's help, they're able to start to piece together bits of the puzzle about who he was, what happened to him, and why he's, where he is in the attic and not, well, heaven or whatever. And it's really fascinating, and that part of the story is well crafted. It's not predictable. It took a really interesting turn, and I think it's about the halfway mark that we learn something about Ernest that helps to drive the story in a different direction. And the second half of the film is more about exploring that side of Ernest. I feel like the first half is definitely where the comedy is for the most part, and the second half is when we dig a little bit deeper into Ernest. We start finding things out and it becomes much more intense, but not in a way where I feel like shifting emotions is clunky and uncomfortable, but in a way where I feel like the film is maturing as the narrative progresses, aside from the bits that I've mentioned that I think spoil it. But the performances are great, and the special effects are brilliant. I really like the glow that Ernest has. I know it sounds weird to say the spirit glowing. It seems cheap. It sounds like it would be having a really cheap glowing apparition feel, but actually it's more of a yellow kind of, it's like a yellow glow or a yellow wash over him, so you can't quite see into his eyes clearly, and you can't quite see him as clearly as if, there are plenty of films that deal with ghosts, and the ghosts are just a solid figure without any special effects. But here, giving him this ethereal quality with this light surrounding him and also over him makes it seem like we can't quite get to who the real Ernest is or who he really was without going on this journey. And I think that that worked very well, and it looks very good. So if you take out the CIA, you take out the social media garbage and all of the other occasional cheap gimmicks. For example, there was a car chase, and I feel like they were trying to make it a fun action film. And again, that just felt like they were trying too hard and trying to put too much into it, and that detracts from the quality, from the things that make this interesting. But as I said, for me at least, I can forget about those. I can reflect on the good parts of the film, and I can take those out without losing the bits that make the film good. So that's fine. I can deal with that. But I feel like they were definitely trying too hard, and it just became a bit of a mess. And there are so many things in this that didn't work and shouldn't have been in there, and made it just scrappy and messy. And I don't quite want to use the word infantile, but it does just feel like somebody's gone, this is my first film, I'm going to put everything into it that I can. When really they should have stripped it back and just focused on what was important to tell the story. If you put too much in, it takes away from what's necessary. But as long as you can remove those yourself in your mind, I think you'll enjoy it. I'd say it's worth watching. It's not the best film I've ever seen, but when it's good, it's really good. And I think it's worth sitting through the rubbish parts to enjoy the very fascinating story. Not the best film of 2023, but I think I will look back on it in time, forgetting all of the garbage that's in it and focusing just on what's important. And as long as I can do that, I think I'll look back on it relatively fondly. If you have 2 hours to spare, it might be worth checking out.